Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today, we're going to be delving into the world of William Walker Atkinson.
Oh, fascinating.
Right, a very prominent figure in the New Thought movement.
Hmm.
Now, have you ever heard of New Thought?
I have, yeah. It's all about the power of thought to shape our lives, right?
Exactly. Our thoughts can shape our lives and even reality itself.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah. And Atkinson was really at the forefront of this movement. And he wasn't just a philosopher.
Oh.
Nope. He was also a lawyer.
Huh. Interesting.
And a businessman.
Wow.
So quite a diverse background. And he wrote a ton.
I bet. On all sorts of things, right?
Yeah, personal development,
Mm-hmm.
mental power,
Right.
the nature of reality. You name it, he probably wrote about it.
Oh.
So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack some of his most intriguing ideas and see how they might apply to us today. What do you say?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, great. So Atkinson was absolutely convinced that our minds are way more powerful than we give them credit for.
Yeah, we only use a fraction of our potential, don't we?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually rejected the common idea that the brain creates thought.
Really?
Yeah. He saw the mind as this powerful form of energy, almost like, electricity.
Oh. Like, I can see how he would make that connection.
Yeah, or magnetism.
We can't see them, but we know they're powerful forces.
Exactly. And he believed the same is true for our thoughts.
Fascinating.
They're like these unseen forces that can create real change.
Hmm.
Now, here's something that I thought was super interesting. Atkinson argues that we're only aware of a tiny fraction of what our senses actually take in.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like, if you're walking through a crowded city, you see so much, but you only remember the things you actively focus on.
True, like I might walk past 100 people, but only remember the one wearing a bright purple hat.
Exactly. And Atkinson believed that developing our perception, so, that ability to really observe and interpret what we see and hear,
Right.
that's key to learning and growing.
To really be present.
Yeah, it's not just about seeing, it's about consciously observing.
So true.
So it's like our minds are flooded with information all the time, but we have to actively choose what to pay attention to. And that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Because if we can learn to better control our focus,
Yeah.
we can potentially shape our realities more consciously.
Oh, wow.
And Atkinson, he was really big on practical advice, especially when it came to memory.
Okay.
He was all about
Yeah.
making clear impressions, forming associations, and repeating information to really solidify it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
He even compared memory to a phonograph record.
Oh, that's a good one.
He said, what we record is what we'll remember later.
Wow. Makes you think about what you're recording all the time, doesn't it?
It really does. And speaking of powerful mental tools,
Yeah.
Atkinson was also a huge advocate for the power of imagination.
Okay.
He saw it as key for personal growth
Right.
and, ultimately achieving our goals.
Makes sense. How did he suggest we use it?
Well, he believed that by practicing visualization, creating vivid mental pictures in our minds, and, drawing on our existing memories in creative ways, we could actually expand our understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
Yeah.
He even suggested trying to imagine yourself in different situations, like really trying to feel the emotions that others might experience.
Interesting.
So it's almost like mental rehearsal,
Yeah.
but with that added layer of really trying to feel what it would be like to be in someone else's shoes.
Yeah, I can see that.
And speaking of emotions, Atkinson had some really interesting things to say about feelings and how they influence our thoughts and actions.
Oh, yeah.
He went deep into the nature of emotions. So, exploring those instinctual ones like fear.
Right, those primal instincts.
Yeah, that we've kind of inherited from our ancestors.
Yeah.
And then also how social rules
Oh, yeah.
influence how we express our feelings. So it's like this intricate dance between our basic instincts
Right.
and the societal norms we've learned.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to think about how much of our emotional responses
Yeah.
might be hardwired into us and how much is shaped by our environment.
Oh, I like that. So nature versus nurture.
Exactly. But within this complex world of emotions, Atkinson was especially interested in what he called religious and aesthetic emotions.
What are those?
He believed these were higher feelings that connected us to something bigger than ourselves.
Oh, okay.
And he really encouraged cultivating these finer feelings through contemplation of the universe, engaging with inspiring art and music,
Yeah, beautiful thing.
and recognizing that shared spirit that exists within all beings.
So it's not just about understanding our emotions, it's about actively cultivating those that elevate us.
Exactly, and connect us to something greater.
Yeah.
But while he emphasized the power of feelings, he was also a big believer in self-control,
Okay.
especially when it came to, desire and will. He believed that our will,
Yeah.
although a very strong force,
Yeah.
is often guided by our desires.
Okay. That makes sense.
Right. And our desires,
Yeah.
shaped by both our feelings
Uh-huh.
and our intellect,
Right.
are what steer our actions.
Yeah.
So Atkinson argued that by understanding and managing our desires through willpower and reasoning,
Okay.
we can live happier,
Yeah.
more fulfilling lives that are truly aligned with our values.
So it's about making conscious choices rather than being ruled by our desires.
Exactly. Now, one of Atkinson's most intriguing concepts is what he called mentation,
Mentation. What's that?
which is basically all mental processing.
Yeah.
From just simple awareness
Okay.
to complex thought.
Right.
And here's where things get really mind-bending.
Yeah.
He believed that mentation wasn't limited to humans.
Wait, what?
Yeah. He actually suggested that even plants and inorganic matter possess a degree of mind.
Well, hold on. He's not saying that rocks are thinking, right?
Not exactly.
Yeah.
But he did point to examples like certain plants that only release digestive fluids in response to specific substances,
Okay.
suggesting, a rudimentary form of intelligence.
So like a basic awareness and responsiveness.
Yes. And this idea of a universal mind, present in all things.
Yeah.
This paved the way for Atkinson's theories on what he called dynamic thought,
Dynamic thought.
where our thoughts aren't just passive,
Yeah.
but they have a tangible impact on the world around us.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about positive thinking. It's about recognizing that our thoughts have real power.
Exactly. Atkinson believed that our thoughts act as vibrations, impacting other minds and potentially even shaping physical reality.
This is starting to sound like the law of attraction.
You're exactly right. Atkinson believed that the law of attraction was a fundamental principle operating on every level,
Okay.
from tiny atoms
Yeah.
to us humans.
Oh, wow.
Just as particles are drawn together by forces,
Yeah.
our thoughts and desires attract corresponding experiences.
Oh, that's powerful. So we're constantly attracting things into our lives based on our thoughts.
Exactly. And he provided some really compelling analogies to illustrate this.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
For example, he compared the Earth's gravity to the combined force of all its particles.
Okay.
And in the same way,
Yeah.
the power of our thoughts comes from the combined force of all those individual mental vibrations.
Wow. So just like every little particle adds up to create the Earth's gravity, every thought contributes to this force that shapes our reality.
You got it. That's mind-blowing, isn't it?
It really is.
And this leads us to one of Atkinson's most influential ideas, the power of dynamic thought.
Okay, remind me, what is dynamic thought again?
So dynamic thought is the idea that our thoughts aren't just passive.
Right.
They're actually dynamic forces with the ability to shape the world around us.
So we're not just thinking about things, we're actually creating things with our thoughts.
Precisely. And he believed that we could harness this power
Okay.
through practices like visualization, focused attention,
Yeah,
and cultivating positive emotions.
that makes sense.
So he encouraged people to be proactive,
Yeah.
to actively cultivate their desires, create those vivid mental images, and project positive thought vibrations to attract success and well-being.
So it's about being intentional with our thoughts and directing them towards what we want to create.
Absolutely. Atkinson was really ahead of his time. And, his ideas about dynamic thought have had a huge impact on how we think about the power of the mind today. But we're just scratching the surface here.
I know, I'm already hooked.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore some of Atkinson's ideas about how our minds work and how we can use that knowledge to our advantage.
Can't wait. Atkinson was really big on understanding how our minds actually work.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, how do we actually think?
Exactly. And he went deep into this idea of reasoning, how we form concepts, make judgments, and all that.
Okay, that sounds complicated.
It is, but Atkinson breaks it down really well. He starts with this idea of abstraction.
Abstract.
Yeah, it's basically how we take our experiences and pull out specific qualities or attributes.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Sure, like imagine you see a lion.
Okay, fierce.
Right. And from that experience, you can abstract the concept of strength.
Oh, I see. So we're kind of like mentally pulling out the key elements of what we experience.
Exactly, and creating a separate idea based on those elements.
Cool.
And then we use these abstract ideas to form concepts, which are essentially mental representations of broader categories.
Like bird, for example.
Perfect. The concept of bird includes the features common to all birds.
Right, like feathers, wings, beaks.
Exactly. But not the specific traits of any particular species.
So it's like a general category.
You got it. And from there, Atkinson explains how we use inductive reasoning to come up with general conclusions based on our specific observations.
That sounds familiar, like the scientific method, right?
Bingo. Observe, hypothesize, test, and conclude. Atkinson breaks this whole process down, showing how we gather evidence, come up with theories, and then test those theories against the facts.
Jesus.
He also explores deductive reasoning, where we start with the general principles and apply them to specific situations.
So it's like working backward from a general truth to a specific conclusion.
Right, like the classic example. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal.
Okay, I remember that from philosophy class.
But knowing how to reason effectively isn't always easy, right?
No, definitely not. There are all sorts of logical fallacies and traps we can fall into.
Exactly. And Atkinson was all about helping people avoid those pitfalls. He wanted his readers to be able to spot those common fallacies so they could avoid making bad arguments.
Like what? What are some examples?
Well, one common fallacy is assuming that correlation equals causation.
Oh, right. Just because two things happen together doesn't mean that one caused the other.
Exactly. He also cautioned against making hasty generalizations.
Yeah, like judging an entire group of people based on one experience.
Right. And he warned against appealing to emotions instead of logic.
Oh, that's a big one these days.
It is. People try to manipulate others with emotional appeals all the time. But Atkinson was all about clear, rational thinking.
So he was trying to equip people to be more critical thinkers.
That's a great way to put it. He wanted people to think for themselves, not just be swayed by faulty logic or emotional manipulation.
And that's so important today, when we're just bombarded with information from all sides.
Couldn't agree more. Now, you might think that with all this emphasis on logic and reason, Atkinson was, just a purely analytical thinker.
Right.
But that's not the whole picture. He was also deeply interested in the spiritual side of things.
Oh, really? So he wasn't just about cold, hard logic.
Not at all. He was trying to bridge that gap between science and spirituality.
Interesting.
Using the principles of science to explore the mysteries of the spirit.
I like that.
And this is where we get into his ideas about the I am and the real self.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So Atkinson believed that beyond our physical bodies and even our conscious minds, there's this deeper spiritual self that he called the I am.
The I am.
Yeah, it's kind of like the true source of our power and creativity, the part of us that's connected to this infinite intelligence of the universe.
Oh, that's deep.
It is. And he believed that we could access this inner power through practices like meditation, contemplation, and, becoming more aware of our thoughts and feelings.
So it's about going beyond the surface level of our everyday thinking.
Yeah.
And tapping into this deeper wellspring of wisdom.
Exactly. Atkinson also talked about cultivating gratitude and appreciation for the beauty of life.
That makes sense.
As a way to connect with our true self.
So it's not just about achieving success or material things. It's about finding a deeper meaning and purpose.
Right. It's about aligning ourselves with something greater than ourselves.
This is really resonating with me.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
And Atkinson provides a ton of practical advice on how to do this. Well, he talks about developing positive qualities like courage, enthusiasm, persistence, self-control.
Right, all those virtues.
Exactly. And living in harmony with nature, treating others with kindness and compassion.
So it's a really holistic approach, right? Integrating inner work with our outward actions.
You got it. And one of the key themes that runs through all of Atkinson's work is this idea of self-reliance and personal responsibility.
Oh.
He believed that we have the power to shape our own destiny.
We're not just victims of circumstance.
Exactly. He was all about taking ownership of our lives and creating the life we want.
That's empowering.
It is. And he did it all with this contagious enthusiasm.
Oh, I bet.
And a genuine belief in the potential of the human spirit.
It's like he was a cheerleader for the human mind, reminding everyone of our incredible power.
That's a great way to put it. But of course, he also acknowledged that the path to self-mastery and fulfillment...
Right, it's not always easy.
No, it takes effort, discipline, and a willingness to face our own limitations.
So it's about learning from our mistakes,
Yeah.
persevering through challenges, never giving up on our dream.
Exactly. And he offered so much practical advice and techniques to help people along that journey.
I'm starting to see why we're doing a deep dive on him.
He was way ahead of his time.
He really was. So, given all this, why isn't Atkinson more well-known today?
That's a good question. I think part of it is that he didn't really establish a formal organization
Right.
or a school of thought around his teachings.
So he wasn't building a following in that way.
Not really. He mostly shared his ideas through his writing, which, as we know, was extensive.
He was prolific.
He was. And to make things even more complicated, he wrote under several different pen names.
Oh, wow. That makes it hard to track his work.
It does. So I think, in a way, he was kind of a hidden treasure,
Yeah, I like that.
waiting to be discovered by those who are seeking his kind of wisdom.
And it sounds like there's been a resurgence of interest in his work in recent years.
There has. People are rediscovering his timeless insights and finding that his ideas are just as relevant today as they were a century ago.
I can definitely see why. His message about the power of the mind and self-mastery seems more important than ever.
It does. We're living in a time of information overload and constant distractions, so Atkinson's ideas about mental discipline.
Right, focus, self-control.
Exactly. They're more valuable than ever.
He gives us those tools we need to navigate this crazy world.
He does. So we've talked about a lot of the positive and inspiring aspects of Atkinson's work, but were there any parts of his work that were a little more controversial?
That's a good question. Now that you mention it, I do remember that he delved into some areas that some people might find a little, well, unsettling.
Like what?
Well, like hypnotism
Oh, yeah.
and influencing people at a distance.
Okay, I can see how those topics could raise some eyebrows.
Right. I mean, those are areas that can be easily misused.
For sure. So how did Atkinson approach these topics?
Well, he approached them with a blend of scientific curiosity and spiritual insight.
Interesting. So he was interested in the potential of these things, but also recognized the risks.
Exactly. He was fascinated by the possibilities of the human mind
Hmm.
and believed that we've only just begun to understand what we're truly capable of.
So he was kind of like an explorer venturing into uncharted territory.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. But at the same time, he was very clear about the ethical considerations
Okay, good.
and stressed the importance of using these abilities responsibly.
Makes sense.
So it wasn't about manipulating others for personal gain,
Right.
but about understanding the potential of the mind,
Yeah.
using it for good.
I see.
And along those lines, he also emphasized the need for self-protection,
Oh, yeah, that's crucial.
both for ourselves and for others.
How did he suggest we protect ourselves?
Well, he talked about the importance of cultivating self-awareness
Okay.
and developing positive qualities like compassion, empathy, and integrity.
So basically strengthening our inner defenses.
Exactly. He believed that these qualities acted like a kind of spiritual armor, protecting us from negative influences.
Interesting. So it's not just about learning to use these powers, it's about developing the wisdom and character to use them ethically.
Absolutely. And I think that's such an important message, especially today.
I agree. It seems like everyone's trying to hack the human mind these days.
It's true. But Atkinson reminds us that true power comes from within,
Yeah.
and that it's always better to use our influence to lift others up, not to manipulate or control them.
Absolutely. And this leads us to one of Atkinson's most profound and thought-provoking ideas, the concept of the I.
Okay, tell me more about this I.
He describes it as the very core of our being, the eternal spiritual essence that transcends our physical bodies and even our conscious minds.
So it's like the truest, most authentic part of ourselves.
Exactly, the part that exists beyond our physical form and even our thoughts.
Wow.
And Atkinson believed that connecting with this deeper self allows us to tap into unlimited power and wisdom.
So it's about recognizing that we're more than just our bodies and our minds. We have this spiritual dimension that connects us to something much greater.
You got it. And he offered all sorts of practices and techniques for connecting with this deeper self, like meditation, contemplation, and, cultivating those positive qualities we talked about earlier.
So it sounds like a journey of self-discovery and spiritual exploration.
It is. And the purpose of all this inner work, according to Atkinson, was to help us become more effective in all areas of our lives.
Interesting.
From our relationships to our work, everything.
So it's about bringing that inner strength and wisdom into everything we do.
Precisely. And he didn't just present these ideas in some vague, abstract way.
Right.
He offered vivid examples and practical advice.
Oh, good.
Drawing on his own experiences and the wisdom of the ages.
I like that. He made it relatable.
He did. He was a master storyteller, weaving together science, philosophy, and spirituality in a way that really speaks to the human heart.
And that's what makes him so compelling, right? He wasn't just a brilliant thinker, but also a gifted communicator.
Absolutely. And one of the things that really stands out about Atkinson's work is his incredible optimism.
Yeah, he really had a positive view of human potential.
He did. He believed that each of us has this incredible potential for greatness.
Wow.
And that nothing is impossible for those who dare to dream big and put their minds to it.
That's a powerful message, especially these days when it's so easy to feel discouraged.
It is. But Atkinson reminds us that we have the power to create the life we want.
Okay. But he acknowledged that it's not always easy, right?
Of course. He was realistic about the fact that the path to self-discovery and growth, it's a journey, not a destination.
It's about continuously striving to become the best versions of ourselves.
Exactly. And I think that's really the essence of Atkinson's message, to empower us to take control of our lives, tap into our inner potential, and create a world that reflects our highest aspirations.
That's beautiful. Well, this has been an incredibly fascinating exploration of Atkinson's ideas so far. And I'm really excited to dive into some of the specific techniques he offered for harnessing the power of our minds. We've covered a lot with Atkinson, you know?
We have. It's amazing how much ground he covered.
Yeah, from the power of thought to self-awareness and all that.
Absolutely.
But I'm really curious about those practical techniques.
Oh, yeah.
You know, for actually harnessing the power of our minds.
Yeah.
What were some of his big recommendations?
Well, one that really stands out is this idea of a positive mental attitude.
Okay, that sounds pretty straightforward.
It does. But, staying positive can be tough.
Oh, tell me about it. Life can throw some serious curveballs.
Right. And Atkinson got that. He knew it wasn't about denying negative emotions.
So not like forcing yourself to be happy all the time.
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
It's about consciously choosing to focus on the positive, cultivating a sense of optimism and hope.
Even when things are tough?
Exactly. He even compared it to, like, letting sunshine into a darkened room.
Oh, like that.
Instead of dwelling on the darkness, focus on the light.
Makes sense.
And he had some practical tips for this, like practicing gratitude, focusing on our strengths, surrounding ourselves with positive influences.
That's all good stuff.
Yeah.
Did he have anything to say about negative self-talk? You know, those inner voices that can be so critical.
For sure.
What did he recommend?
He was all about replacing that negative self-talk with positive affirmations. It's like choosing to feed our minds with empowering thoughts.
Right, instead of those limiting beliefs.
Exactly. And another technique I found fascinating.
Okay, what's that?
His discussion of dynamic thought. This idea that our thoughts aren't just passive.
Yeah.
They actually shape our reality.
Oh, wow.
He used the analogy of a magnet, attracting similar things.
So if we're constantly thinking negative thoughts, we're more likely to attract negative experiences.
That's what he believed.
That's kind of scary.
It can be, but the flip side is that if we cultivate positive thoughts,
we can attract positive experiences.
Exactly. Like, we're creating our reality with our thoughts.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is, but also incredibly empowering.
That's true. So how do we actually put this into practice?
Atkinson offered a bunch of techniques.
Okay.
Things like visualization, affirmations, creative thinking. It's about being intentional with our thoughts, focusing on what we want to create.
Not just passively hoping.
Right. We have to actively use our minds to shape our reality.
And take action too, right?
Absolutely. Thoughts are important.
Yeah.
But we have to back them up with action.
So it's a combination of mental and physical effort.
You got it. Aligning our thoughts, beliefs, and actions.
I see.
It's powerful stuff.
It is. Atkinson really covered it all.
He did, from the practical to the more esoteric.
Oh, yeah. I know he talked about things like hypnotism and telepathy, right?
He did.
What was his take on those?
He approached them with this, like, scientific curiosity,
Okay.
but also spiritual insight.
A blend of both.
Yeah, he was fascinated by the mind's possibilities.
I can see that.
He believed we've barely scratched the surface.
Yeah. Like there's this whole hidden world of mental powers.
Exactly. But, and this is important, he was really clear about the ethics.
Oh, right.
You can't just go around manipulating people.
Definitely not.
True mental power for Atkinson.
Yeah.
It comes from aligning with those higher forces. And using your abilities for good.
It's about responsibility.
Big time. And he talked about protecting ourselves.
Oh, yeah, from negative influences.
Exactly. He said we need to cultivate self-awareness.
Yeah.
Develop those positive qualities. Compassion, empathy, integrity.
Right, building that inner strength.
It's like spiritual armor.
I love that analogy.
Protecting us from harm.
So powerful.
It is, especially today when there are so many messages out there.
Yeah.
About using mental influence to get what you want.
No matter the cost.
Exactly. Atkinson was different.
He was.
He said true power comes from within.
Yeah.
Use your influence to uplift others, not control them.
A much needed message, for sure.
And I think that's really Atkinson's legacy. He was a pioneer, showing us the power of the mind.
And how to use it for good.
Precisely.
So, what does all this mean for us?
Well, it's a message of hope and empowerment.
Okay.
We're not just passive observers.
We're active creators.
Exactly. We shape our own destiny and the world's.
Wow, that's a lot to take in.
It is, but Atkinson gives us the tools to do it.
So it's about taking ownership.
Yeah.
Recognizing our power to create change.
He encourages us to tap into our minds, cultivate those positive qualities.
Make a difference.
And he gives us practical ways to do it.
So it's not just theory, it's about application.
Absolutely. If you want a more fulfilling life, check out Atkinson's work.
I think I will. He may not be a household name.
True.
But his ideas are timeless.
They are. More relevant than ever.
Agree.
If you're interested in the power of your mind,
Yeah.
check out his book, The Secrets of Mental Magic.
Oh, good suggestion. I'll have to add that to my reading list.
It's a great starting point.
This has been such a fascinating conversation.
It has.
I feel like I have a whole new understanding of the mind.
Me too. And to leave you with one last thought.
Okay.
If your thoughts shape your reality, what reality will you create?
That's a powerful question.
It is. We have incredible power.
It's up to us how we use it.
Remember, knowledge is power when it's applied.
So true. Take what you've learned,
Yeah.
put it into practice. You might be surprised at what you can achieve.